Walking through the city, lights all aglow. Everybody's got a story to show. Wheels keep spinning, streets overflow. Hustle never stops, we're in the flow. Skylines high like our dreams in the air. Concrete jungle, we got flair. Rhythm of the night, we don't care. Underneath the stars we breathe rare. In this urban jungle we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side. Echoes of the past linger near. Future calls, we face it with no fear. Every corner tells a tale so clear. In the city, we chase what we hold dear. Shadows and whispers blend in the night. City's pulse beats with all its might. Lost in the chaos, but it feels right. We rise above, reach new heights. In this urban jungle, we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side.
And good evening, everybody. My name is tonight 0508 225568, known as Ballot. And we've got 0800 Woke the Higher. And we've got Nick. How is everyone this evening?
Woke. I'm feeling woke.
Well, I'm still Nick, but if anyone can think of a name that I should change it to, please put your name. Put a suggestion into the comment section because I'm feeling a little bit like I need to change my name into an 0800.
Oh, 0508. I mean, you can do all sorts of different things there.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you should go for that, Nick.
Yeah, I think I should. Yeah.
Just a moment. I think we can make that happen literally like this.
Excellent. All right, there we go. Magic.
So, how has everyone spent their Easter? Are they overindulged in Easter eggs yet?
I'm feeling very humid and sweaty and sticky because it's been excruciatingly hot. Otherwise, besides that, yeah, I ate too much chocolate.
So the humidity of Foxton managed to transfer itself to Ekatuna, but somehow left Wellington out?
Magic.
Yeah.
Now, did you meet up with my mum? Because my mum ran around Foxton Fair trying to find your cart.
Oh, I don't know. No one introduced myself as Gail.
Yeah, she ran around twice. Where were you located?
It was the Bean Here trailer. God.
Well, I mean, she's old and wears glasses, so I don't blame her. But yes, she tried looking for you. She did tell me that.
I was by the grandstand.
Oh,
near the toilets.
And you two were at Foxton Fair, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is this? Was it? The downside about this is I can't link my cameras to the phone, but I'll go to the dash cam. I'll go to my counter camera right now. God, I don't know if you can actually end up seeing that, but
No, it just looks like overexposure to me. There we go. Yeah.
So that's serving one of the customers at the counter camera.
Eye impairments. We can't see what you're
Oh.
showing to the camera. We're
I don't
fucking
know.
blind.
I don't know if I can make this actually go onto my phone. I don't know if I can actually end up sharing this onto my TV, onto my computer. It's a weird thing about the app. There is it doesn't sit there and do it. Like, I mean, it's like I've got a see. I don't think we took any pictures when we were up there. Does Foxton Easter Fair have any? Oh, Foxton Easter Fair. I'm just on their Facebook page right now to see if there's any.
Hey, Nick.
Yep.
Do you realize that your microphone is like up there?
Oh yeah. That's where it stays. It just kind of sits there.
Because
But
Kiwi's
my main
skirt.
microphone is working. Okay.
She can't hear you.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Well. Just shout.
How about that? Is that better?
Yeah, I can't find any clips of me being there other than the surveillance footage that you guys can't actually properly see. But yes, no. Oh, I do have one thing. I have a merchant settlement statement that I could email to you guys of my sales that showed money went from my till, and it wasn't my own credit card.
Did you make much in terms of sales today?
It was down on last year.
Yeah. Yep.
Like it was a bit down. And it's because the annoying thing about the Horowhenua is the forecast the forecast predictions they were using was having to use Levin's forecasting because it's the nearest town. But the problem is Levin is 10 kilometres inland from the sea, Foxton's 5. So the weather forecasting itself is not always necessarily accurate for Foxton as it could be. And that literally shows where there was a weather pattern change was around about Levin. Like, put it this way, Levin, from like Otaki to Foxton, headlights off. But from Otaki right through to Wellington, it was headlights on territory, including there was annoying black missing leaf, not driving its headlights on, blending into the road. And what made it worse was that missing leaf was only doing 70 kilometres an hour in the 100k area, but then overtook us in the 50k. Very poor driving. But, you know, hopefully they do not become part of a crash statistic. Yeah. So, yeah,
Been a wacky
I don't know what your
day
mum was
today.
looking for, whether she was looking for being here or was she just looking for what she could give her as a coffee cart.
I have no idea what she was looking for. I'll be perfectly honest.
And to
I think
be
she was
honest,
just looking
I
for
had
coffee.
I had the Caribou coffee flag on the top of my coffee cart that you could see from a distance, so it's above all the stalls. And I also had a footpath sign out in one of the sections there with the Easter egg lattes in it. That was a good, 5-10 meters from there to direct people down the direction to where we are, because we're on the path that goes between the oval in the centre and the main stage. Not the main stage, the toilets and the grandstand. We're on that path that goes there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my mum is elderly and has ADHD and is vision impaired, so I don't expect her to find much of anything.
Yeah, but no one called Gail sat there and said hello. I was kind of hoping there was, because I would have sent one of our Easter eggs over in your direction because it was vegan.
Oh well, maybe next
Tell
time.
your mum that, she didn't do a good enough job and there could have been a vegan Easter egg.
Yeah, mum, you failed at the Easter egg hunt. I'm sorry. Skill issue.
Next minute she'll put a sorry thing in a comment in the chat.
She will. That would, yeah, if you see the sorry comment come up, that'll be her. She tried. She did try.
Yeah. Okay, so let's kick off with the dreaded Well, it depends which way you see it. The Employment Relations Termination of Employment by Agreement Amendment Bill first reading from the one and only, who's not allowed to be part of the Laura Club, Laura McCure, previously known as Laura Trask. And just beware, her first reading was on a separate day to the rest of the first reading speeches because her debate was interrupted.
Okay.
It's not
That bad, was it?
No, it was late at
Report
night.
on members' order of the day number 3.
Employment Relations Termination of Employment by Agreement Amendment Bill, first reading.
Laura McClure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the Employment Relations Termination of Employment by Agreement Amendment Bill now be read for the first time. I nominate the Education and Workforce Committee to consider this bill. Firstly, guys, I would like to thank my team because this has been a huge effort. For all of you that know, being a first-time MP and having a members' bill in the tin, the chances of it being pulled are quite rare, so I'm pretty excited to have this be pulled, and I want to acknowledge my team and my staff that have really helped us on this. I also would firstly like to acknowledge the business community, the various different chambers of commerce across the country that I've spoken to and heard their advice. Also, the employment law experts that I've been talking to. So thank you so much for all the advice and encouragement you've given to me and helping shape this idea come to life. Today marks an important step forward, a step towards making the employment process in New Zealand simpler, fairer and more practical. This bill fosters a collaborative approach, empowering employees and employers to approach the sensitive issue of employment termination, not as adversaries, but as partners. It's about making sure that when an employment agreement needs to come to its natural conclusions, there is no unnecessary stress placed on both the employee and the employer. Instead, this allows for them to deal with these situations quickly and fairly. As someone who's owned a small business and as the party small business spokesperson, I know and I've heard from the voices of countless businesses, owners throughout the country, and the very real obstacles that these businesses in New Zealand face. The challenges have been made clear. The ongoing effects from COVID, rising costs, and tight margins all contribute. However, the current employment system represents one of the biggest barriers to business success, productivity, and SMEs taking a chance on employing somebody new. The complexity, the time, the stress, and the process can feel like mountains to climb, but this bill is part of a broader effort to streamline our employment processes and make them more balanced. What is the problem we have here and what is happening? Firstly, I'd like to talk a bit from a business perspective. What is happening out there is the difficulty that businesses find when they get themselves in a situation where they have an employee, for whatever reason, the communication or the relationship is breaking down. And there can be various things that can happen in this situation. Under our current law, we don't have a lot of opportunity and options to approach somebody to discuss about potentially ending that contract. So what is happening out there is employers are using the likes of restructure, redundancy, performance review, which are really good processes, and we should have these processes, but they are using these to move people on because they're unable to have a conversation about what it might take in order for them to leave when that relationship has started to break down. This is incurring all kinds of different problems at the end. PGs, whether that is because the process has been not followed quite correctly or because the process was followed correctly, but 6 months of a potential restructure, if you have to go to work and work together, you're probably going to end up in a PG. And then you've got the other side of things. If you're an employer and you're going through some of these processes, whether it's you're being made redundant, especially in a small team, you quite often know that this is possibly not what is happening here, but you're going through these processes, it's extremely distressing and dehumanising for everybody involved. We have processes in place. We have things like the mediation process if there's a dispute. We also can enter non-prejudice, but all of these things take an awful lot of time, they cost an awful lot of money, and they have the same outcome at the end. Why can't we say that actually an employer and an employee can come together to discuss what it is that's happening within the employment and how they can move on? And in doing so, that employee may be rewarded with a monetary sum and all kinds of other things which I'll discuss about. Let me be clear, this will not undermine workers' rights. It's about creating a system that's fair and transparent for both the employers and employees. When this relationship breaks down, as we all know, I would say everybody sitting here tonight has either been an employer or an employee, worked in a workplace where employment relationships are breaking down and where the dynamics are changing in the team. We need manageable processes in place to be able to deal with these quickly. Now let's dive into some of these key provisions in this bill. This bill allows for employers to initiate what's called a protected negotiation with employees about the potential termination of their employment contract. This process is designed to be confidential so both parties can have an open and honest discussion about the employment without the fear of this being used against them in a potential PG dispute. This is particularly useful in situations where a business may need to make difficult decisions, such as downsizing, restructuring, or moving people on. One of the most important features of this bill is the introduction of a settlement agreement. In cases where appropriate, the employer can offer an employee a settlement agreement that includes compensation in exchange for the employee's agreement to end their contract. The terms of the settlement might include monetary sum, a reference, or other mutually agreed upon conditions. The employee would also waive any potential personal grievance claims against the employer in the future. For the settlement to be enforceable, it must be in writing, signed by both parties, and must include a recommendation for the employee to seek independent legal advice before signing. This ensures that employees are fully informed of their rights and implications of this agreement. Importantly, any discussions or offers made during the negotiation process will not be admissible in future legal proceedings related to the employment relationship. This is crucial because it ensures the confidentiality and encourages both sides to negotiate. And this is actually happening, but it's happening quite far down the track when people are in the non-prejudice situation. Of course, if there's evidence of dishonesty, illegal activity, predetermination discussions could actually be used as evidence in court, but these would be the exception rather than the rule. There are several benefits to both the employers and the employees under this bill. For employers, it makes the process of dismissal less stressful, more efficient, saves time and money on legal costs and potential PG claims down the track. What I've heard from New Zealand businesses, and especially our SMEs, that PGs have become the cost of doing business here in New Zealand, and this is not acceptable. It creates a more harmonious work environment by offering fairer processes for everybody involved. Within this framework, employers can feel more confident when hiring new staff, knowing there's clear and straightforward processes for managing terminations when needed. For employees, this bill offers the chance to bypass a stressful, time-consuming process that leaving a job can have, and it won't damage their reputation. This is particularly important in niche markets where going through a large process, whether it's performance review, whether it's going back on a PG, where your reputation can be damaged, and we don't want that to happen and occur. By allowing them to negotiate a settlement at the top end, this can give an employee certainty about leaving the workplace through things like financial compensation, something that is particularly important since many employment contracts nowadays don't include redundancy pay. And this is more so if you're in a low to middle income job. The process is designed to be mutually agreed upon so the employee can withdraw at any time if they wish to no longer proceed. Even being offered to have this conversation, they need to agree to it in the first place. This ensures both parties have a fair opportunity to make the decision that is best for them. Similar legislation already exists in the UK for over 10 years. We're seeing global trends towards more flexible, mutually beneficial termination processes. This bill is in line with that trend. It empowers both the employers and employees to reach an agreement on the best way to end their employment relationship on terms that actually work for both sides. There have been a few questions that have come up during the process of this bill. Firstly, does it create a power imbalance between the employer and the employee? The answer is no. While employees may initiate the settlement process, employees have the option to walk away at any time. They're still entitled to all the rights provided under the Employment Relations Act 2000. Second, could an employee raise a personal grievance down the track for having this conversation? No. And I think this is a key core message about this bill. It's allowing to have that conversation without risk of a PG coming back on you for having that conversation or approaching the conversation. Finally, what about timeframes, etc.? The bill does not prescribe specific timeframes for the negotiation process. This is something that, should this bill pass, would be further explored by a select committee. There are other provisions that the select committee may want to include, and that could be around cool-down periods for signing negotiations. It could be what is considered a timeframe. So in the bill currently it says a reasonable time for notification, reasonable time to consider a contract. These are things that I'd be really keen for a select committee to hear from those that are working within businesses, from those employees, about what would be reasonable. So this bill's practical, it's much needed reform. Like I said, the current system isn't working. The processes that we have in place are there to be designed to be used for when they're really needed, and we need something else. We need another tool in the kit. So, Madam Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Well, that's quite interesting what's being said there, but I don't know. What provision is there under this Act to protect someone who is later having to apply for Social Security's payment? Because often, in order to avoid a 13-week stand down at MSD, you usually have to negate a personal grievance against your employer in order to not be stood down for 13 weeks, especially if you consider it to be wrongly done. Yep. So this could potentially bar someone from rightfully getting the benefit, and you might have an agreement where you may terminate your employment because of medical reasons, such as you might not be able to actually fulfill your job properly with a new disability, such as if you had a stroke. I know Tony had issues with that at one stage of trying to work with his now former employer, but then current one, just to try and make the basic stuff work. He would often, it was not easy trying to get that to work across. So, there needs to be steps in place that also make sure that we ensure that we're not actually putting barriers in place where there are situations where there possibly either should be a personal grievance, because I can see an employer actually using this and doing it with a zero-sum cost associated, rather than actually, a guideline such as, say, 13 weeks or something like that. Especially if the person does end up on the unemployment benefit, with a 13-week stand down, it would be often to do it. I do know Blake did message me on this one. Your microphone's flipped up, not down.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I didn't have the right software installed on my other machine, so I think hopefully that'll be better.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So for people in the chat that are confused about what this bill is, basically, this bill will allow for an employee to seek termination, the contract by mutual consent by requesting the employee to sign a settlement agreement. in return for specified compensation, to have their contract of employment terminated and not to bring a personal grievance claim against the employer. So this is bad. This is bad because personal grievance claims, they're done when an action, well, it's an action that can be taken against a current or former employee when an employment issue is unable to be resolved. And this includes things like discriminated against on prohibited ground, sexual or racially harassed, where people workers were subjected to duress due to membership or non-membership of a union or an employees organization, or were unjustifiably disadvantaged in their employment. So not meeting the legal requirements for agreed hours of work or reasonable compensation and reasonable notice periods to be given for the cancellation of a shift. So yeah, it's bad. It's basically just here's your money, leave, fuck off, don't speak up. And I'll continue being a shitty boss, Bill.
Yeah, and that's something that should not be the case. It should not be It should not be used as a method to bypass bad bosses out there who really need to be given the boss death penalty.
Yeah, I mean, are there people that abuse the personal grievance claim system? Yeah, sure, probably. Yeah.
If it goes through to a court, it's much easier to actually, an employment relations authority adjudicator can actually see through bullshit.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that's I'm not sure if many people actually know, but there are more rulings in favour to an employer than there are to an employee when someone goes to the ERA.
Yeah, well, one of the things that this bill's going to do is, now let's just have a look at my notes. It's going to increase the threshold for procedural error in cases where the employee's actions against the employee are considered fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just looking at this one, and this one operates with the presumption that there's an equal level of bargaining between employees and employers.
Yeah.
And in the vast majority of cases, that's just not true. I don't know how many people have tried to negotiate anything with their employers recently, but it's generally a fairly short conversation. And I think it's also kind of driving towards this whole idea that we should get rid of some of the things that in our employment law that employees and unions have fought pretty hard to keep, particularly things like personal grievances, which have become pretty necessary at the moment, because things are pretty tough out there. And I think that point was made pretty clear during parliamentary debate on this. So I think this is generally bad, and I think we should make that very clear. What's going on here? It's a further eroding of whatever employment rights we have left. So I think that this is
a shitty boss bill.
Here's something that's not employment related but isn't to do business. There's a person in Wellington who does events and that sort of thing there. I have been basically told I'm not allowed back until I get a 10-amp male to 32-amp female adaptive plug doing it. In order for me to get that, either it has to have a 10-amp RCD, which means I can't run my coffee machine, or it would, so that would be legal. If I didn't have that, it would be illegal. It would be unsafe. Your normal 10-amp wall plug in the wall is not designed to carry 32 amps of current. It could burn down the building. Now, I've explained this to this person. I've also said there'll be no electrician would sign their name to a lead like that. And the response was, stop being difficult.
Just burn down the building. Do it.
And not realizing that it would invalidate my insurance. It would invalidate her insurance. It would invalidate the building's insurance. Some of these venues are council owned. This could cause a lot of conflict. But when you're dealing with someone who's like that, how do you have a reasonable negotiation when it's like, just do what's illegal or don't bother coming back?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, Sam, because I was looking at some of the changes, and I'll quote, where an employee contributed to the situation that led to the personal grievance, payouts can be reduced by up to 100%.
Yeah, but is an employee who's saying, refusing to breach food safety should lose 100% of the payout because, you know, like that, like there needs to be clear guidelines. Like that's like, you know, I mean, you know, put it this way: if you got told to murder someone in a job, you know, are you going to do it? If you get fired, oh my God, it would be a brilliant story. I mean, the police would come to help you on it.
Well, it's like if you were asked to do something dangerous, like I've done work in forestry, right? It's like, okay, do this dangerous thing. You refuse. Okay, it's unsafe. I don't want to do the dangerous thing. I could end up hurting myself or hurting someone else. No, we're going to let you go, and I'm going to pressure you to go, and you're going to not say anything about it. And here's your payment. Fuck off.
Yeah, and actually, that was something around the rules of there were rules around yelling the word timber, and that was to sit down there and let everyone know a tree's about to fall down. But, you know, here's the thing is, yes, Kiwi Skirt, completely true. Yes, I'll see the extreme, but the problem is you have to mention the extremes and scenarios. Otherwise, people would sit there and just brush it off.
Yeah, they won't get it.
Yeah, you know, and sometimes you have to sit there and go and mention, you know, the extremes. You know, I've mentioned that with people when it comes to booking my coffee cart, you know. I want to have the scenario that works. When we do it in the ballot shows and you want us to come to our community, I want 3 hours setup time. If you go 1 hour, take it or leave it, what's the point of me sitting there doing a rubbish job? Yeah. Okay, let's get on to the second speech. Now this gets a bit interesting. I think it's Katie Nimmin.
E warewaretia, ka mau mahara tonu tātou, kia rātou.
The time for this debate has expired. I call on members order of the day number 1.
Employment Relations, Termination of Employment by Agreement Amendment Bill, interrupted debate on first reading.
So when the debate was interrupted, we were on call number 2, which
Madam
is a
Speaker.
National Party call. Katie Nimmin.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Look, it's a pleasure to talk to the House and to those watching on this Members' Bill in the name of Laura McClure. Sometimes it's the way these debates fall that unfortunately Laura spoke to this bill at the last Members' Day, so I will sort of, I guess, reintroduce it and give people a little bit of an overview and just explain our position on this bill and where we hope this goes through Select Committee and what we hear. So look, the Members' Bill in Laura's name is seeking to amend existing provisions under the Employment Relations Act to enable termination of employment through mutual agreement between employer and employee, allows for protected negotiations, discussions shielded from use in personal grievances between employers and employees to end their employment relationship. The purpose of it is to help employers and employees avoid costly, unfair dismissal or personal grievance processes and claims, reduce legal costs and more quickly come to a mutually agreed outcome for both parties. So look, for national and for national-led government, of course, we are very much on the side of self-responsibility, individual rights, competitive enterprise, you name it. And for us, it's very important that a workplace has the efficiency and freedom to operate and prioritising the relationship between the employer and the employee. I think to make some points here, I think the thing that is most interesting to me here is the increased flexibility for employers and employees as described above. Something that we hear often from opposition in certain areas where we debate certain issues is the ability to have an efficient workforce or an efficient labour market. I believe this would add to that. That allows people to be able to move from roles that are not suitable, that they're not necessarily happy in for either reason from both parties.
Katie is muted. I don't know how you did that, but that was, yeah.
That was to mute it from.
Oh, that's how interesting. So muting your microphone actually mutes the video as well.
Yeah. However,
Okay.
I actually have found my coffee cart in a reel on the Foxton Easter page. So I've actually found something, but you know, okay, we've got to sit there and stop that and see if we can share it.
Say what they think needs to be said.
Apparently, it was a mute on the clip.
Oh,
So when I
okay.
press M to mute on restream, it did something weird.
And then people walk away and find that there's an opportunity to take a case through the lack of process being followed, and then it uncovers itself into months, if not years, if not very costly situations for both employer and employee.
So look, I think it's very important to note that while we support this bill, we really do want to go through a thorough select committee process. We agree to support it to select committee. There are a number of things that we'd be very keen to investigate further and really get some good insight into. I think the importance for us is to understand what the process would look like, timing, feel like the pressure on both parties to go through the process and what that would look like. And of course, comparative to international situations, just to mention, of course, the United Kingdom's protected conversations model, which has demonstrated efficacy in supporting the balanced consensual terminations. And so it would be very interesting to see this around the rest of the world and, of course, what the international precedent would look like. Just going back to some other points within existing ERA requirements. Currently, the ERA, Employment Relations Act, for those that don't like acronyms, require employers to demonstrate a substantive justification, redundancy, misconduct, and comply with strict procedural standards to lawfully terminate employment. There are many businesses that have gone through it. There are many businesses that take other actions to avoid doing that, employees that take other actions to avoid going through those processes. And for many people, it ends in more distress, more financial implication, timing implication. Things can get messier and messier. And so I do appreciate the foresight or the thought of the member to bring this to the House, given that while this particular bill is not a coalition agreement, the coalition does have a view that what we want to do is simplify personal grievance procedures, and of course this leads to that. This is certainly an aspect of that as well. Look, something else to add to it, of course, and why we're really keen to hear from people, because naturally when we go through the select committee process, we're hearing from businesses, we're hearing from employees, we'll always hear from people that have gone through difficult situations, we've always hear from people that have wished or hoped that something like this would have been available when they'd gone through a process. But of course we also hear from legal areas, associations, business associations, and it adds significant context. And of course, naturally, the members bill process, while not government bills, we tend to hope that the select committee process irons out a number of kinks and works out the workability, which we would hope that this process will determine for us. And look, like I mentioned earlier, quite keen to see how the workability of the relationship between the employer and the employee in the process goes through this, to avoid any implication of pressure on that process or the relationship, and what this would do to streamline and smooth out that process as well. So just to say that, certainly in support of small business, the ability to do what, in this particular case, mutually agreed process would have us come to that conclusion, and give people a far more simple approach, because I tell you, some employers, and especially in the case of trades, the trade industry, often the case is that a builder has come up through an apprenticeship, worked for somebody else, created relationships, gone on their own, decided to start a business, gets into a position where they go well enough to employ someone else. They never went through business school. They went through, BCITO, let's just say, got their apprenticeship, earned their stripes, but never studied employment law. And actually, you just about need a PhD thesis to understand the Holidays Act for one part, and of course the rest of the Employment Relations Act, except by Dr. Carlos Chung. And look, those people are the backbone of our economy, and this is something that we believe, with the right measures in place and making sure that the workability is certainly there, and that can be going through that process, that it is there to support those people in business that don't have large HR departments and the funding for legal advice and the ability to work through all this stuff and follow those tick boxes, that have mutual agreement. And I think it's really important to reinforce that this is not about giving one person more power over the other. It is about supporting and facilitating a mutually agreed process where neither party know where each other stand unless they go through a very complicated and expensive process. So look, with that, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, we support this bill to select committee. Really look forward to hearing the submissions. To anybody watching online or thinking about those that they know in business, that are watching at home on TV, please get involved in the select committee submission process, because it is very important that we have a wide range of views, experiences and expertise that are part of that, because it does genuinely allow us to see all sides of the coin, and what we can do to make sure that we make all of our legislation the best possible. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
She just basically called me stupid, didn't she? It's like, think of the poor tradies, they're too dumb.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, thanks.
There are, I'm not sure if it's come to this country yet, but there are in the United States contracting services which you can pay a company $100 a week to sit down there and have a on-call HR representative to sit and do it, designed for small businesses, such as the builder that Katie mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know who that builder is, but it's not hard to read. Learn to read. Okay, yeah, yes, she is right. It will improve efficiency. It's very efficient to pressure someone to leave and to tell them to fuck off with a thing of money. That is efficient, but it's not ethical, and we shouldn't go down that route.
The conflict of interest in that speech from Katie Nimon is just stunning.
Yeah.
Katie Nimon is the heir to the Nimon transport business in the Hawke's Bay.
Yes. Yes.
So she's currently working inside that. What? Sorry, she's an MP at the moment. Before
But
she
she
became
was.
an MP, she was rising through that huge transport business in the Hawke's Bay. So the like I said, the conflict of interest within that speech was just stunning, because it's bills like this that will enable large transport firms like Nimmons and also others to be able to be much more ruthless around their hiring practices, to be able to get rid of people at will effectively through quote unquote mutually agreed hiring decisions. And so, I mean,
his crime theft by employer and women's speech bill mentioned about bus drivers driving bus routes and refusing to collect passengers.
But you combine this with 90-day trials as well. Right? It's like you can't look at this bill in isolation. You got to look at all the other crap that's coming with it, or that's already been established.
So I mean, you can't look at a speech like that without thinking about the wider implications of the degrading of our employment practices that are going on here, and also just the general conflict of interest around the ability to make it easier to do business from the business owners that are actually sitting on the government benches, or the people that are set to benefit from the passing of legislation like this. It's pretty astonishing, really.
Yeah.
I wonder, did Katie work alongside Brian Dawson at some point?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Because I do know Brian Dawson was a priest in charge or something in the Hawke's Bay before he ended up being the one at St. Peter's on Willis.
I don't think they ever worked alongside each other. I'm pretty sure Brian drove the buses and Katie owned the company. But
yeah. And Brian can tell you all sorts of things, such as BCI's rear tag axles are garbage compared to Scania rear axle steering.
Yeah. So no, I don't think they ever knew each other.
Yeah, well, I do know that Brian did help Lawrence Yule on one of his mural campaigns.
I do think it's very funny because I'm reminded of my sister. She's currently doing an apprenticeship at an aluminium joinery company. She's got her qualifications as a builder, or to start building. But this idea that the apprentice is too dumb, we need to think of the poor tradies. My sister has read all the books, right? You can't be a tradie and not read the books. You have to know your shit, right? Especially when you go off and you start your own business. These aren't dummies.
No, not anymore.
No. We got to sit there and stop thinking about all apprentices are fifth form dropouts who couldn't pass School C or NCA level 1. And we've got to realise that actually, even just to get the basics of an apprenticeship, you've actually got to have NCA level 1.
It takes years too to get through your apprenticeship.
Yeah, I know. Alan Chambers. He is of that old school thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And he has had at different points in time. I remember one stage he had 4 apprentices on the go.
Yeah, I mean, I had to get my certificate up at Toy Hall before I could sit in a digger, right? I had to use simulations and everything for 6 months before it's like, right, now you can go in the digger. It's like, yeah, we spent more time reading than being out in the field with a chainsaw. I kid you not. There's so much that we have to do before we're even allowed on the field.
It's like Brian Dawson saying about the driving simulator, and he got marked down on the snow version because he forgot to load the transmission on an automatic gearbox in the simulation. It was about traction protection in the simulation of driving a Stereo style bus for long distance ones, because he used to drive into city buses, all that sort of stuff. And you had to go through simulators because one of the things was the SO simulator in case the desert road.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to write essays about this stuff too.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, I got to sit in front of a video game for X amount of hours and now I'm ready to drive a digger. No, there's a whole bunch of stuff you've got to do to get your qualifications. Like, so Katie is just like, I don't know what builders she's been around, but I would recommend those builders to go back to trade school.
Yeah. Okay, Jan Tanetti.
The Honourable Jan Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And while it's normal, and I do congratulate the member for having her bill drawn, it is not something, and I'll say it straight away, that we will, on this side of the House, the Labour Party will be supporting. I listened very carefully during the first speech that the member made, and I've also gone back and read it in Hansard, and there is nothing in there that convinces me that this is in the best interest of employees and, in fact, employers. I listened very carefully to the member and her arguments around this. She talked about this doesn't impact on that power imbalance between employers and employees, and I cannot disagree more with that member. There is an absolute inherent power imbalance between employees and employers in a situation, an employment situation. The bill undermines and erodes the fundamental rights of workers, which is we are strongly in opposition to. It creates a monumental risk for employees. It is something that there are no parameters on when an employer can negotiate an employee's exit. In fact, it takes that power imbalance and makes it stronger to the employer. Now, I understand that the member spoke about in her first reading speech around small businesses and how this is very much wanted, but the bill itself does not put a parameter around size. It doesn't talk about this being specifically for small businesses. It is not two-sided. It is very much putting that emphasis back onto the employer. The member talked about being maybe a way that negotiations could happen around exit payments. There's nothing that talks about minimum exit payments, nothing that talks about representation, nothing that talks about urgent access to mediation services, and as I say, it doesn't talk about being there for our smallest businesses. I see this as being a huge risk to employees. We see it as being a huge risk. It really emphasises that unequal power dynamic that exists in the employment situation, and therefore the Labour Party will not be supporting this bill.
Good.
Gee, short, sharp and sweet.
Yep.
Thank you, Jan. I think Jan summed up all of the concerns that both we have had and I think some pretty obvious flaws in the bill that most working people will feel.
So, go on to the next speech then.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the quickest chat we've ever had.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise, as with the previous member, sadly to oppose this bill on behalf of the Green Party, congratulating, of course, the member for getting her bill drawn. It's really great to have your bill drawn as a member of Parliament, and especially, for someone who, first term, exactly. So we're opposing this because, like a lot of ideas this coalition government has, it has a good idea at the heart of it, but it doesn't actually. They actually seem to fail on the execution front. For example, this government has adopted the mantra of growing the economy, but they've just succeeded in having record levels of unemployment and also having lower growth than we did last year. So if that's what they're calling growth, I mean they've embraced the degrowth philosophy. This government has this whole rhetoric around law and order, but as my colleague Tamitha Paul has already articulated, they've actually defunded the police by 55 million just in their first budget as government. Maybe they'll double defunding the police in this budget. Maybe it'll be a cuts of 110 million this time for the next budget. Well, Finance Minister Nicola Willis said she's not ruling anything in and out of the budget, so maybe she'll make billion-dollar cuts out of the police. Who knows? We won't see until the budget. And look, I'll get to the crux of this bill. And as I said, I think the core at the heart of it is allowing mutual terminations. I mean, that's not something that anyone's opposed to. But as people here realize, some things are more or less mutual than others. Sometimes you have a breakup and then you call it mutual, but you've actually been dumped because there's power imbalances across any kind of relationships, and it's like that. I've had that as well. And look, we've had the CTU provide commentary on this bill, and I think I'm very convinced by the argument they make. Yeah, no, it's just old-fashioned notes from our researchers. There is always a process for employers to engage in mediation with staff. This bill is not needed to ensure that without prejudice conversations can occur. These occur frequently and play a part in resolving practically all employment issues. And look, another employment law specialist, Lai Neve, agrees with the CTU analysis. They state there's no apparent limit on when an employer may try to negotiate an employee's exit and the risk that the employer will have limited bargaining power to meaningfully negotiate. Further, by making any evidence of the pre-termination negotiation inadmissible, there's a risk of offers being made that support unjustified conduct that give a rise to personal grievances, save for the protections granted by the bill. So, while we congratulate the member, and I'm sure all the coalition parties will vote for it anyway, so it'll go through anyway, regretfully, we cannot support this legislation. Thank you.
I'm not regretful. No, we should not support the bill. No, it's a bad bill. It's going to screw over workers. No, bad bill. No regrets.
Yeah. I can picture it be like, we're doing this. I'm giving you nothing and you pay me money.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's like, no, I don't feel regretful about not supporting the here's your money and fuck off
or can I take your whole? I'm taking all your holiday pay and everything, and you can't take me as a personal grievance.
Yeah, it's not like a romantic relationship. I don't know why he made that comparison though. And no, we're talking about people.
Liam gave me 2 weeks notice to break up.
It's just the logic was weird. But yeah, it's like, no, we're talking about people who might be afraid or who who not a member of a union or like what Jen Tinetti said, right? They should be able to get representation and stuff if a work relation falls apart.
Yeah. I think that'll go on Friends highlight reel. But
I mean, put it this way, I wouldn't have made that argument. Not the argument I would have made.
Not the one you lead with. But
Francisco and I have met, but my ex Liam did give me 2 weeks notice to break up one time. So I mean,
okay, all right.
Maybe it's from the people who sit there and treat a mutually loving relationship as an employment agreement. And actually, it's quite interesting. Eddie actually sat there and said to me, when Bradley kind of left, he kind of left like using the abandonment clause on an employment contract.
Okay, that's a first for me, but all right.
That was the way that Eddie described it.
So this is why the relationship kind of metaphor doesn't work. And this is why using it. But anyway, it makes.
Can you file a personal grievance claim? I mean, can you do that in a relationship? Yeah.
Well, the one that possibly could do that could be Alex.
Yeah. I mean, Francesco seemed much more interested in talking about Tam and the police than he did.
Well, his groovy Tam was sitting right next door to him.
Yeah. I know. I thought
we're demoting Tabitha from MP status to groupie fan status.
Yeah. I mean, she's gotten so much press in the news recently that she's had a cyclone named after her. Cyclone Tam.
That's actually a damn good point. Even though I actually thought about that, Cyclone Tam was like the name Tam of young Sheldon, Sheldon's best friend. So that when Tam came to me, it came to me like that, not Tabitha Paul.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but I just thought it was very funny that they named the cyclone Tam.
Well, it definitely wasn't called. Was it Cyclone Tanya? As that's who's up next.
Ooh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand on behalf of New Zealand First, speaking to the Employment Relations Termination of Employment by Agreement Amendment Bill in the name of our colleague Laura McClure. I just need to make sure that it's not a budget debate that I'm talking about here, Mr. Speaker, that we are in fact speaking to this bill, and I will do my best to stick to the bill. Now, New Zealand First, we will support this through to the Select Committee. We will do that in this first reading. We do want to also say that there are some issues that we really want to look at thoroughly in the bill. I note that it says here that it's a mutual termination of employment, and it says that it will be mutual and that it will be even, but we do have a little bit of a concern there that there will be a bit of an empower balance, and that is why we feel that it's very important that this is really thoroughly looked at in the Select Committee process. Another thing we want to also investigate is to ensure that this doesn't already exist, that there already is a means in some way for there to be a mutual agreement in order to end an employment. So we just wanted to really traverse those ideas to ensure that it doesn't already exist. Now, it does mention that it could be the business owner that is the initiator. So this is where there is a little bit of a concern that it isn't mutual. It's a bit like I'm not that into you, and then all of a sudden the other party gets a surprise. So imagine what that's like in an employment situation. Ask who? Oh, right. If that does arise where an employee is really surprised that the employer wants to go ahead and do something like this, it will make it uncomfortable for the employee to continue on in some way. So there's one example, for example, that we just wanted to make sure. We also, I just need to have a little sip, excuse me. Also, in the event that this does go ahead and that there is a mutual agreement, it could be that the employee then maybe takes a little bit of time to find new employment if they feel that they were in some way pressured. We also wanted to ensure that if by chance the employer had that little bit of extra power over in the relationship, that the employee was coerced. So these are areas which I know might be rare, but we really do want to ensure that the employee is protected. We want to ensure there is fairness for the employee. We really want to advocate for workers, so that is why we really do have a few concessions here, New Zealand First. So we will support it to Select Committee, but we really do want to encourage not only businesses to make submissions, but employees as well, the workers out there. And whilst they may not be able to come in person and give an oral submission, you can do it by Zoom. It's only 5 minutes. We really want to hear from people who have felt in some way coerced and just hear personal experiences. So that is one thing I would encourage. And again, congratulations, Laura. Very lucky. I had a bit of FOMO when I saw this get pulled. So very nice. So thank you. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'll commend.
Well,
Wait. I just want to address something that Tanya just said. Already exists. Like, don't people who write bills check if already existing legislation exists before writing? Like, they don't check?
Who knows? Who knows?
Like, I think we need to make that a requirement when writing a bill, right? Just to make sure we're not getting duplicates.
Well, one of the things about the select committee process is making sure that it does not have a conflict in the bill, such as a maximum speed limit of 30 k's up Rindhill Street in Newtown and a minimum speed limit of 50 kilometres an hour at the same time.
I'm so confused.
Like that would be something that would conflict two laws. Now, there is another thing out there, and there's if we're talking speed limits, I'm not sure if many people actually know this, and don't ask me how this works on Transmission Gully, because that's actually where it doesn't work. But did you know there's a minimum speed limit of your vehicle must be capable of maintaining a minimum of 60 kilometres an hour in order to drive on a motorway? Not many people know about that rule, but don't ask me how that works on Transmission Gully.
So one of the interesting things about this one is New Zealand First actually have quite a record on worker rights.
Yeah,
it's not kind of it's not a stellar one, but they certainly do like to support workers in terms of their rights, and so it'll be interesting to see how that progresses through select committee, and you saw that coming through Tanya Ankovich's speech up there, and you have seen them coming through earlier this year around the Ibrahim Omar bill.
The crime theft by employer amendment bill.
That's right, which I'm sure we covered here, didn't we, Sam? That's right.
Yes, and we even have a song that we can actually play that just a moment.
Before you play the song, I mean, I just want to acknowledge Tanya's point that she is correct that if an employee wants to quit, that could put an employer at risk, right? But that doesn't mean that, hey, we should throw away all the things that protect an employee.
Yeah. No, and I think one of the big things.
After 2 hours of debate, the New Zealand Parliament votes 63 to 60 to make it a criminal offense to steal wages from your staff, just like a staff member stealing from the till. But without it road, those that didn't want it claim the sky would fall in.
Yeah, I think we got over the gist of what that is, but yeah.
Possibly one of the biggest things that we haven't really had a discussion about is around social insurance, and I think that's one of the big things that possibly didn't get as much attention, didn't get through last time Labor was in government. But I think that's one of the things that if we are going to have something like this, where people do lose their jobs, that provides that buffer for someone to then have 80% of their salary for an agreed period of time, and then gives them the opportunity to then look for new employment.
Didn't Labor have something like that during COVID?
We did, yep.
I thought that was
it was a temporary one after it exposed a lot of pitfalls within the existing social security system.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was some challenges around,
including the fact that if you lost your job but your partner was working, you likely weren't going to be covered.
Yep. Yep. But I think there is a discussion to be had around what an appropriate safety net looks like if you are coming off a reasonably paid job, and then what does that look like for you then to move into new employment.
Yeah, especially if you're someone who's came off a $90,000 a year job and is applying for $90,000 a year positions. Yeah, which I've heard wins have shot some beneficiaries down for that, even though that's what the market going rate is for their qualifications.
Yeah, I've got a brother that's just graduated. He's I think computer engineering from Auckland University. Can't get a job. A great worker, he's got a history of solid work and working companies like Pack'nSave, but can't find a job. And, Windsor's telling him, oh, just take any odd job. He's like, no, I'm qualified for this.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
like telling a doctor to sit down there and become a checkout chick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can picture Wins doing this to Marion, like, no, Marion, don't be stupid going to Australia for 6 months to earn a decent 6-figure income as a doctor. Why don't you become a checkout chick at Pick and Save?
Why don't you go milk some cheeky cows down the Waikato?
Oh, God, she would not do that. She's a vegan, but yeah.
Oh, I'm a vegan too. I got told to do that. It's like, go milk some cows. I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I guess I'm a farmer now. Shit.
Okay, take it to Tash Kemp.
I te mana whakawā e ngā mema o te whare tēnā koutou katoa. Ka tū au I runga I te mana o te Pāti Māori. Me te tino aroha ki ngā kaimahi I hinga ana I raro I te taumahatanga o tēnei pūnaha. I rise on behalf of Te Pāti Māori and the many Māori, Pacifica and migrant workers across Aotearoa to say we oppose this bill. This bill would allow employees to make cash offers to employees to exchange for silence, silencing the right to raise a personal grievance, to speak their truth and to hold abusive employers to account. Let's be clear, this is a bill that helps bosses harm workers. Believe me, I know. I've actually been in this situation. I've been a CEO that's actually used this process, and we think it's good, but it is actually an imbalance of power, of behaviour, of access to get rid of kaimahi. And we think that it's a great way, but to be honest, it's not great for workers because 1 minute they're here and then 1 minute they can be gone. So this is a tool for quiet dismissal. It creates a new legal pathway where an employer can approach a worker and say, here's an offer, here's some money, leave quietly and don't ever speak of this again. And if that worker agrees under pressure, in fear or out of desperation, the law will not allow those negotiations to be used in court. Who will this harm the most? Well, not the boardroom, not the CEO, not the middle manager. It will be Māori workers, wahine Māori, rangatahi Māori, and low-wage whānau who will be most affected. Those in cleaning jobs, call centres, hospo and security. The ones without lawyers, the ones living paycheck to paycheck.
The ones
this
that
is what harms the most.
Harassed.
And we know from generations of experience, when the law gives discretion to the powerful, the powerless get burned. This bill erodes the fundamental rights, and we've heard from our Labour colleagues about those fundamental rights, against the rights to fair recourse, the right to speak out if you are treated badly or unfairly. It undermines the purpose of the Employment Relations Act. Where is the tiriti in this? Nowhere. This bill was written without Māori for the employers, by a system that still refuses to see us as decision makers. There is no acknowledgement of mana Māori, of tikanga, or of the collective approach we take to resolving workplace harm. There is no protection for the kaupapa Māori providers, the rangatahi workers, the wahine leaders who might be pushed out of their mahi with no voice, no support or no justice. This bill is a quiet legislative layoff tool. So I ask this House, who benefits when a worker is silenced? Who loses when a mother of 3 living in emergency housing gets pressured into signing a mutual termination just to get her final pay? And what happens to the trust in employment law when justice is made optional? Te Pāti Māori will not support this bill. We cannot support a law that widens the gap between employer and employee. We will not back a policy that opens the door to more Māori losing their jobs in silence, with no path to redress. If we are to honour Te Tiriti and uplift the mana of every worker, then we will put this bill to the side where it belongs. Hold
on, did I hear that right? Like, I'm glad that she's against the bill, but did she say that she used to in the past takutai to miss workers with a cash payment? She's like, oh, it's very efficient, but it's terrible for the workers. It's like, because I did it. It's like, are you sure that? Am I hearing that right? Is that something you want to publicly admit in Parliament?
No, she can't be sued for it in Parliament because of where she admitted it to. But yeah, I mean, I do know from my BP days, the ways you get rid of difficult employees is you find them a job that kind of comes across as a promotion. That was something that was commonly. I learned that one from my boss Hayden. He was very good teaching me that. I don't know if Hayden's watching the show at the moment.
So
it's really quite funny if he
sorry. So how does the strategy work? Would you put them in a different role, or would you just go, I don't know. He's the
You
shit
try,
out the back.
so what would used to happen was if you were trying to get rid of a difficult employee, you'll try to get them into a senior position in another store.
Well, see that I don't necessarily have a problem with that. That's not. I wouldn't call that necessarily unethical. It's not like you're saying.
You watch them crash and burn.
Yeah, I mean it's one way to get someone to leave.
Yeah, I mean you can say indirectly that kind of what happened to me. That didn't exactly happen to me at BP when I shifted from Levin to Johnsonville. But basically, after 4 managers in 12 months and a bullying area manager who thinks she's the best in sliced bread, and her bullying 2IC who also thinks he's the best in sliced bread, basically just made it so intolerable that like the particular region itself had stagnation of people moving up the chain because they just didn't want to deal with those two idiots. Yeah. And I actually do like that's how Luxon ended up as a CEO. Yeah. And also as the leader of the National Party, and funny enough, the Prime Minister.
Jeez, okay. Nick, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to remember what we were talking about there, but yeah, I mean, I think Tash made some really good points around this bill will negatively impact Māori Pacifica.
Oh yeah,
and Māori Pacific
suck for the ag and hort industry.
It's going to also negatively impact those who are sexually harassed.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd also toss in there disabled workers as well, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the ability to bring in our unions to support all of those workers. This bill is inherently about removing the ability of our unions to support some of our lowest paid workers, some of our workers who are inherently discriminated against in the workplace. This is about trying to remove the ability for to provide that support in the workplace and just make it about the employee and the employer. And I mean, Jan made the point really strongly that there is an inherent imbalance. And I think when we just try to make it about the employer and the employee, we really isolate some of our really vulnerable workers. And I think that's just going to result in some really terrible situations where people are just going to be shafted in the workplace and continually shafted, and even more so. And I think that you're going to hear some really terrible stories in select committee, and I think that's really good. And I think we should. And I think we should line up. Everyone should line up and tell their story about how they got absolutely done over.
Absolutely, yes.
In select committee.
Mm-hmm. And if you're watching, if you're one of those workers that have been treated like shit by a boss, please put in a submission. We would love to review it.
Now, I thought I'd show this. So I found a reel with me at Fox and Easter Fair. So there's this.
Where's my parents located? Okay, they got a black van.
But yeah, there's me. You can.
I don't know how I don't know how my mother missed
it. You see my coffee cart?
Yeah, Mum, come on. How did you miss that? How? I mean, I just wonder if my parents were at the right fair. They said they were going to Foxton.
Yeah. Well, that's usually one that's on Easter Sunday. Yeah.
Maybe my mother walked through a wormhole and ended up in an alternate dimension where you were not there at the fair. That's the only explanation I have.
It's a beautiful day, Sam.
Maybe she ended up at the other coffee vendor.
Yeah. My mum has a habit of, going to weird places, and sometimes I wonder, you know what? She probably just has a teleportation ability. She can probably go through wormholes. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Okay. Now, something so fitting for Easter Sunday, the day that the public holiday you can't buy alcohol on, but somehow you don't get paid time and a half a day in lieu. It brings up a lot of them. But we've got Kira McAnulty's Members Bill. The sale and supply of alcohol sale on exit day morning Good Friday, Easter Sunday, and Christmas Day Amendment Bill. And let's kick it off with Karen.
Alcohol sales on Anzac Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day Amendment Bill be now read for the first time. I nominate the Justice Committee to consider the bill. Madam Speaker, in a week's time, people will be going to bars and restaurants and the supermarket, and they will be able to purchase alcohol like any other day of the week. And then the following day, they won't. And then the next day, they will, and the following day, they won't. And the question has to be asked, why? Why is it that on Easter Sunday and Good Friday, there are different rules that regulate how alcohol can be served than any other day of the year? In fact, there are 3.5 days. There's Christmas Day as well, and there's Anzac Day morning, but given the proximity to Easter, I will focus on that. It seems that this rule is in place because it always has been, and that's not really a good reason to have a rule. On every other day of the year, the distribution of alcohol is essentially determined on health grounds. The rules by which a liquor licence is decided and the conditions under which an establishment can serve alcohol is heavily influenced by health considerations. But it's not on these days. If I wanted to go to the pub on Good Friday, I would have to buy a meal to have a drink. The same applies to Easter Sunday. Why is that? Why is it that hospitality workers have to concern themselves with monitoring what people eat in order to do their job that they are more than capable and highly skilled at doing every other day of the year? This bill, Madam Speaker, will address that. Now, I expected this. I expected the ACT Party to heckle this because I understand they're disappointed that Cameron Luxton's bill got voted down. I get it. But this is an example of all the other attempts to change these rules. Every other attempt has gone beyond what Parliament is willing to accept because it's not actually as simple as liquor licensing rules with all the other bills that have been put forward. They've looked at trading laws and they've looked at labour laws. This bill does neither of those things. It is about the sale and supply of alcohol, and that's it. And in preparation for this debate, I looked through the speeches of Mr Luxton's bill, and there were broad ranges of concern and opposition to it. The Labor Party didn't support it because we don't support any changes to what is essentially, for most workers, guaranteed days off. We also don't support any changes around labour laws in that. There were also concerns by members of Parliament that liberalising alcohol laws is bad for the community. I don't agree with that, and we'll explain why this bill doesn't do that in a moment. There were also concerns by members because of their personal religious beliefs, which I respect. But I'm going to touch on that first. Easter is a Christian holiday. I am Catholic. I'm not a very good Catholic, but I'm still Catholic. I attend Mass at Easter and at Christmas. At no point in my religion, and in fact the vast majority of Christian religions, does it prohibit you from drinking alcohol on Good Friday or Easter Sunday. I'm not going to eat meat on Good Friday. Would this Parliament support a ban on serving meat in this country on Good Friday? Of course it wouldn't. But exactly the same logic applies here. On Easter Sunday, when I leave Mass, I'll go home and have hot cross buns. Then I'll have lunch and I'll crack open a beer. I've done this every year since I was 18, and if I'm honest, probably a couple of years before that. But what is wrong with that? If these rules are determined on religious grounds, yet the religion that has led to the holiday doesn't prevent the consumption of alcohol, what is the logic behind this? There is none. I respect those that hold views that would lead them to not want to consume alcohol on those days. Absolutely respect that. But what about those people that don't hold those views? Why should they be prevented? The same goes for Anzac Day morning. There is a restriction on the serving of alcohol on the morning of Anzac Day. But what this has led to is that RSAs have had to apply for special licences to serve rum and the coffee to veterans. Surely that is considered counterproductive. On Christmas Day, the same logic applies, although I'll put this to the House. If members wish to send this to Select Committee and they have reservations about Christmas Day, I'm happy to negotiate. We've got to be pragmatic. I have no problem with it, but when you look at all the other examples of attempts to change these rules that failed in this Parliament, we've got to try and meet in the middle. If members have an issue on Christmas Day, Cameron Luxton just needs to get over it. His bill was different and it didn't have the support. This bill is completely different to what he put forward. I put it to him that if he really wanted his bill to pass, support this one. But don't begrudge me because yours didn't pass. This bill here is actually, Madam Speaker, going to fix an anomaly in the law. This bill doesn't affect businesses that cannot open. That's a really important point. The intention of this bill is to assist those businesses that are already legally able to operate under normal conditions. It is not the intention of this bill to allow off licences to operate. It is not the intention of this bill to allow retail businesses that can't operate to open. It is solely focused on those businesses, supermarkets, restaurants and bars that can already open but have to operate under perverse rules. Why do I say it's perverse? Well, think about this. How many times have you been at the supermarket the day before Good Friday and seen people stocking up on alcohol because you can't buy it the next day? I've done it. And then I've had it sitting there for ages because I bought too much. I would imagine many of us have done it. So these rules, they encourage stockpiling. The bizarre thing about the rules that require people to buy a meal before they drink is you've got a window before the meal and a window after the meal. I would hazard a guess that the people that take advantage of that drink more in that small window than they would have done if they were just allowed to go to the bar and buy a pint. It's just logic. Shivers, we've only got a couple of hours here, we may as well make the most of it. That is actually a perverse outcome. When the hospitality workers, who are working anyway, and will be under no further compulsion than they already have in the law, they'll be working anyway, but they have to do their jobs in a different way than they would on any other day of the year. That makes absolutely no sense. Let's consider this. We are a country that in many ways relies on tourism. They fly from all corners of the world to come and experience our beautiful country. And then they walk into a pub and they get told that they can't buy a beer unless they buy a meal. But they want a meal, so they walk out. That is counterproductive. This bill is very simple. It just addresses the anomaly in the liquor licensing laws. It doesn't touch on labour laws and it doesn't change the trading laws. That has been tried and it hasn't got there. It doesn't make sense that we will continue to operate in these bizarre circumstances where you can go to the supermarket, you can buy absolutely everything except a six-pack of beer or a bottle of wine. If they're already operating, Madam Speaker, why on earth can't they just operate like they normally would? This is a pragmatic change. It'll be welcomed by the hospitality industry, which have had a very difficult few years. It won't be opposed by workers because it actually allows them to work under the same conditions that they are trained to do every other day of the year. But what it does allow is for New Zealanders to continue on and have the choice that they've always had. If they want to observe their personal religious beliefs, this country respects that and they can still do that. But if others wish to make a choice, they can do so that they would on any other day without undermining those people's beliefs or actually their own. This is not the most important issue facing the country, but this is Members' Day. There are many other things that I would like to achieve in Parliament. Workers earning a living wage being one. A New Zealand head of state is another example. But here is an opportunity for the country to have a discussion at committee stage that we've never actually had and see if New Zealanders think these rules make sense. I commend it to the House.
The question is, I mean, yeah, I'd love to have a drink with Karen, but there is one potential issue because I was looking into this bill. I don't know how many people here are familiar with Clubs NZ, but they've got like 300 clubs or whatever.
Yep.
But they stated that Section 47A, which was introduced in 2015 to fix a long-standing anomaly, allows RSA clubs to serve alcohol between 4 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Anzac Day without needing a special license. This ensures veterans can be served a traditional tot of rum or drink following dawn services. Now, if this bill passes as it stands, Section 47A will also be repealed, stripping RSAs of this vital exemption. That means that most RSAs will once again be required to apply for special licenses to open on Anzac Day morning.
Yeah.
So that's a potential issue with the bill that needs to be brought up.
Now, what happens if, say, you're a community like the Kapiti Coast, where the RSA went bust, and the RSA membership base is now part of the Kapiti Club? The annoying thing about that is the RSA used to be next to the Overbridge in Paraparaumu, next to its local war memorial cenotaph. There's the memorial hall's right next door, that sort of thing there. And, you know, for years the dawn service used to be there, and and if you attend the dawn service, you're allowed to have breakfast. I mean, I used to do that with ATC. It was a very common thing we did. Well, the Kapiti Club, are they allowed to sell alcohol in the place of the RSA because they are the local representative of the RSA branch of the Kapiti Coast?
I think that's why it needs to go to select committee, just to iron out, you know, the little details like the one that you've just provided, you know, just around what happens.
I mean, I don't agree with the Shannon Four Square that opens on Good Friday and Easter Sunday to be selling alcohol. I don't agree with that.
Easter weekend. Yeah, I mean, Easter weekend, you've got a lot of people driving around as well. So it's like, yeah, there could be increased risk for, I don't know, death by drunk driving.
Well, I mean, had that happened today, where I think it's earlier in the show, a black Nissan Leaf driving at 70 kilometres an hour and pouring down rain that you could barely see it.
Yeah. So,
you know, and I mean, I got line 5 on my left eye and line 6 on my right eye. I'm a heavy driver's medical. So it's not like I'm blind. And if it turned on its lights, But yes, you know, I mean, that's, you know, it could increase drink driving.
Yes, I mean, I'm with Karen here. I mean, I'd love to go out to go down to the local shop and get some alcohol, but I don't, you know, I don't want other people to become a statistic.
Yeah, you don't want someone driving from Alfreton to the local shop just to sit there and get their 12-pack of beer and then start drinking it halfway on the way home.
That's what I would not like to see.
I think the point that Karen was raising, though, is that by standardising the rules and making everyone aware of what the rules are, it's less likely to create binge drinking situations, which we've got at the moment when we've got people going into supermarkets or going into pubs just to,
Why 15
rules, which is happening right now. I mean, everyone sees that right now when people go into the supermarket the day before and literally, fill a trolley up because, because they won't be able to get any tomorrow,
but what happens if they do that and then they also go to the pub?
Yeah, or like I remember when I worked at BP Levin and we had a bowls store that was behind us. Was bowls store shut today? It was frustrating that we had to deal with that sort of crap.
I mean, it's not unusual either to buy tons of beer and then go to the pub. The same sister that's doing her apprenticeship right now used to be the manager for the local liquor store, right? And the amount of people that just come in, just absolutely wasted, and sometimes you can't always tell who's wasted, right? Come in, buy alcohol, and it's just it's just insane. People's drinking habits.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to Cameron Luxton.
Oh wow!
Is that the motion be agreed to? Members, because this is a conscience issue, you will need to seek a call. I call Cameron Luxton.
Well, Madam Speaker, it is indeed a pleasure to rise and speak once again in this House on the matter of alcohol over Easter. Just this time it includes a couple of extra days. Madam Speaker, the honourable member that spoke previously also talked about a bill that has previously been voted down in this House and that the ACT Party and myself as a sponsoring member thought would achieve great things in this country, allowing people to trade and consume alcohol over Easter in a way they see fit and to address some of the issues that the honourable member who just spoke mentioned. One of the issues he said was visitors come to New Zealand, they're surprised they can't get a drink. Well, they're also extremely shocked when they find out that this particular town or that particular town has got closed shops and that workers have been forced not to work because of the dangers. Madam Speaker, I'm sorry, I missed that heckle, but it's a go. But I'm very interested, Madam Speaker, in the lobbying efforts from the honourable member who's just resumed his seat. His lobbying efforts, I must say, I didn't see come to my office. Did they come to anyone? No, the ACT Party didn't get it. I guess they just thought, a party like ACT that believes in freedom and choice will just support such a bill. But then again, Mr. Speaker, I guess maybe he just thought, look, the lobbying's already been done. There's been a hard-working and humble member of this House that's been out meeting people in the community, workers who want to be able to have the choice, people who are getting sick of the problems that come with, as the honourable member mentioned, the issues that come with a different type of rule regime for some specific days of the year. Madam Speaker, a humble and hard-working MP of this House has been out in the regions, different parts of the country, gathering support for a change like this, engaging, Mr. Speaker, with the interested parties, representative bodies, peak bodies of industry which are affected, talking to workers, hearing the stories, Mr. Speaker. So I suppose the lobbying efforts from the honourable member who's just resumed his seat weren't required in that regard. Mr. Speaker, I will be supporting this bill. It is a conscience vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that not made clear enough for the members on the other side? No, I will be, Mr. Speaker. I'm just pulling out my phone for a moment because I just wanted to read something from the Hansard. It's kind of interesting because what we had was some members make some contributions that, we'll just put it out there and read what it is. This is from the Hansard. Referring to my speech around the Easter Trading Bill, he talked about the issue of a possibility that people who have a negative, I think he called it, relationship with alcohol would go and hoard alcohol. The research suggests that that is not the case, sir. What happens is there is an issue with alcohol, then that is an alcoholic who will buy more alcohol than there is availability. If you have shop hours extended for alcohol sales, they will actually go and buy more alcohol at the time. It's a strategic opportunity relationship they have with alcohol. Mr. Speaker, that was Helen White. I'd like to compare that to the lobbying efforts from the honourable member who's just resumed his seat, which amounted in my case to a PR, which said, a press release for those not in the political world, this will prevent the need to apply for a special licence and serve alcohol to veterans on Anzac Day services. That is to be endorsed and laudable. But it also goes on to say it removes any incentive to stockpile alcohol before Easter. So from the Labour Party benches, we've had two contradictory arguments put forward and then advanced once again by the honourable member who's resumed his seat. He said there is no good reason Mr. Speaker, the member had said there is no good reason to restrict people's choice over these days. Well, I agree entirely. It's funny that some restrictions that the honourable member thinks are worthwhile on New Zealanders' lives what has changed? Are worthwhile, but other restrictions aren't. And I agree with the honourable member that in this particular case, it makes no sense. The evidence doesn't work out. The theological argument the honourable member put forward doesn't mean that we need to be banning alcohol on the day. But we knew this already, didn't we, James Meagher? We knew this already, didn't we, Carl Bates? We knew this already, didn't we, Diane Bidwar? Members who went about this House lobbying on behalf of common sense changes to the rules so that New Zealanders can enjoy their Easter weekend in a way they see fit. The honourable member who's just resumed his seat, Mr. Speaker, I believe, voted down such a change. And so you have to wonder, when the honourable member says, why are we still got this situation? How could this possibly be? How has it taken so long? I guess it's just something we ended up with. Well, what we know, Mr. Speaker, and those of us who have been in this House for more than a couple of months, is that an opportunity like this already did happen. There was an opportunity to make that change. Members across the House were given a conscience vote on the issue, and the honourable member, who's just resumed his seat, chose to vote against that change to Easter trading. It did, he in his speech, Mr. Speaker, we have to give the honourable member his fair argument. He said it was to affect workers' rights and trading hours. But to then go on and say it makes no sense that you can't go to a shop and buy what you want, at the same time saying we're not going to allow shops to open, and then say it affects workers' rights because workers should have a day off, but then vote against a bill that gives every single worker the choice to have a day off, which doesn't currently exist. I mean, drinking is not working, I guess. This bill, Mr. Chair, goes further than my bill. Mr. Speaker, goes further than my bill, which would have not gone near Christmas or Anzac. And I think there is a fair argument about Anzac Day. Christmas Day, the honourable member also touched on, and I think he raises a point there. You know, there isn't a big cry in the community for trading and alcohol sales on Christmas Day. Look, if it's the will of the public and the House thinks that it's a good idea to open up the trade, the ACT Party supports opening up choice, and I think that that's something we should do. But I give kudos to the member for acknowledging that not all New Zealanders think that is a good idea, and I certainly experienced that in the lobbying that I did out in the community, in the businesses, in this House, talking to other members across the House to try and get some sanity to our laws. We did hear that Christmas is an issue. I guess the word bizarre, which the previous member used in his speech, the honourable member has used in his speech, does feel a bit how I feel right now. The bizarreness of hearing the honourable member who's just resumed his seat, to hear him say this, how has it got to this point? How has this sensible change not already been made? And then looking in the voting records and seeing certain members who are sitting on the opposition seats right now, a full list of names that voted no on a conscience issue to fix this very problem. It does feel bizarre, Mr. Chair. It does feel like the Twilight Zone. But look, in my final remaining 2 minutes, Mr. Chair, I won't delve into the historical sayings and happenings of the honourable member who's just resumed his seat. I would like to actually say what a good situation this will lead to for New Zealanders who want to choose how to spend their days. When they look at a rule put in by this House, it has to be backed up with evidence. It has to, if it relies on tradition, there has to be a solid grounding of tradition. If it relies on evidence to maintain a law, there should be solid evidence to maintain a law. And as the honourable member had put out, there just isn't that sort of evidence and tradition to maintain this. What we need to do, Mr. Speaker, is fix up the things that are getting in the way of New Zealanders' lives. Fix up the hurdles in every part, like this government does. Whenever we can find a problem, we get on and fixing it. And the honourable member has gone about finding a problem. Sometimes, supporting certain elements of it. Sometimes not. But he's taken this to the House, as the honourable member has said. It's been not a major issue. It's not one of the major things facing this country, but it is a small inconvenience in the lives of New Zealanders. It's something that Members' Day is designed to fix. And so I look forward to using my conscience vote to vote in favour of this bill brought by the honourable member.
Sounds very, very British. The honourable gentleman from across the aisle. The honourable gentleman, the honourable member from...
Hello there.
I think that was a troll. I'm pretty sure he was trolling Kieran by doing that.
Because he's honourable?
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that chat, don't hate me, but there's a part of me that finds Cameron endearing. Like he would be the kind of guy that'd actually be kind of fun to have a beer with. I don't know. I there's some parts of me that can relate with him, but I reckon him and Kieran should go to the pub together, because basically what Kieran did is say to Cameron, "Hold my beer." You know, I'm going to pass my bill.
Now, which pub should we go to? Should we go to one that's in Te Puke, or should we go to one that's in Masterton? Because one's in the list electorate that Cameron Luxton stood for, and the other one's in the list electorate where Kieran McAnulty stood for. Well, actually, Kieran's got a lot of pubs he can go to because he's got one of the largest general electorates in the North Island.
Yeah, I would say to both of them, just come to the Ekatahuna pub and I'll meet you there.
And if they're going to meet you there, I think I might sit there and drive over the Rumituckers and sit there and either have an orange juice or a raspberry lemonade. Nick, do you want the passenger seat for that one?
Oh yeah, I'd go over for I'll go over for that. Yeah,
I mean,
Kieran's
but you're a bit more of a more compatible option than say asking if Blake or Paul would like to sit there and because one would have to fly down, the other one would have to have a driver Miss Daisy to sit there and do the trip, and I'm not sure how Blake would like on the Reba Tuckers. He'll probably end up telling us in the comment how it's been going over it.
No, I've gone over for a beer with Kieran before, and it's worth the trip. Let's just put it like
I
that.
bet.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Tiano, Tuiono.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on to speak on the sale and supply of alcohol sales on Anzac Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day amendment bill, and want to acknowledge the member for bringing a bill to the House. Members' days are always interesting days when members get to have their say and to propose different legislation. And well, this is awkward because we won't be supporting this bill, at least I won't be. And I do say that with the utmost respect because I do enjoy watching the Honourable Kerry McNulty on the Breakfast Show and that so on and so forth, having political fisticuffs with members opposite, and also appreciate his skill in the House around being very precise and surgical in terms of his arguments as well. But I also, funnily enough, agree with the comments of the last speaker in terms of the similarities of the issues that were canvassed when that member attempted to do something in this area as well. Mr. Speaker, I guess the issue for me in general is, and maybe it's because I'm a bit old-fashioned, that's what my kids say, that Anzac Days, Good Friday, Easter Sundays and Christmas Days, these are times that we need to be able to put tools down. These are times that we need to be able to relax. We need to actually make sure that we get that balance right. And if we're going to have a big tutu around with the holidays, then that, in my opinion, disrupts that balance. And I do hear the point that was made earlier that, well, actually people are rostered on and so on and so forth. But if you make it a day where people can actually purchase alcohol, that will mean that more people will have to get rostered on to serve people. That's what that means. That means that more people have to come in to work as well. And everybody that has worked a low-paid job knows that it's very, very hard to turn the boss down. Very, very hard to turn the boss down when they come and have a chat to you saying that they want you to come in on a shift, and maybe that's on Anzac Day morning, maybe that's on Good Friday, Easter Sunday, or far be it Christmas Day, because all of a sudden people are selling alcohol here, there and everywhere. And so, Mr. Speaker, from many of our position is that it's important that we actually focus on making sure that we get that balance right. And we've seen this, as the Greens have seen these types of bills before, and our position hasn't changed. We didn't support the member Cameron Luxton's bill when he brought that to the House, and I do, as I think I did when we were in this House earlier discussing his bill, acknowledge the work that he did going around the House and trying to canvass those ideas, and that's a commendable thing to do. But having said that, just after having those discussions, we still got to the same place, got to the same position that we have with this bill as well, and that is that we need to make sure that we get the balance right. We need to make sure that what we do doesn't actually end up having low-paid workers having to give up family time, give up community time, and being rostered on to work to serve alcohol, essentially, Mr. Speaker. So the Greens, we do support workplace democracy, collective organising, and fair pay, but also we also support time for life outside of work. Time for life outside of work, and people, I think, said it on both sides of the aisle so far, is that actually you don't have to hoard a whole lot of alcohol. You can be a bit sensible. Just get a couple of, get a 6-pack, or if that's what you want to do as well, get it on the Thursday. We still need to make sure that we can focus on those holidays in terms of their real importance and intentions. So, Mr. Speaker, many of us in the Greens will not be supporting this bill.
He would not be fun to take to the pub, would he? I like him, I really do, but
well, maybe he's not a drinker.
No.
I like Tiano Tuiono, I can picture not being a drinker. It does feel right for him.
I mean, he comes across the sort of guy that would have a beer as a cheeky treat, but yeah.
Yeah. He's not the guy who'll be at backbenches drinking a beer in there. He's one of those people who probably will very seldomly drink alcohol because he just, it kind of more feels like, it's like having what do you call it, fizzy drink or something like that. He doesn't see it as a daily ritual in life.
Nah.
Or is he more of a wine drinker?
I actually think he might be more like of a wine mum, I think he has more in common with them than he does with, the drinking habits of Kieran. I can't imagine him, sculling whiskey.
Yeah, no. Anything you wanted to say, Nick?
Oh, no. I just, I found it interesting, the whole kind of discussion around that we don't want to, we want to give our workers the time off. And I think, that's absolutely right. We do want to do that. But Yeah, so I just think that's an interesting part of the conversation that that didn't get highlighted earlier, and I think that's an interesting counter narrative that really. I was pleased that Tiana highlighted that. So yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad that he brought that up because before we had Karen and Cameron saying, no, my bill's better than yours actually, and we want to go have a drink at the pub.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Dan Bidwa.
In this debate on the sale or supply of alcohol, sales on Anzac Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day Amendment Bill. Mr Speaker, New Zealand has changed from when I was a teenager. Back in the days, I think you couldn't actually trade on a Sunday. I think TV2 was the only channel, and that ended about 9 o'clock, the little Kiwi came on. And a lot has changed since the 80s. And New Zealand will continue to change. And I believe that this is an evolution, this is a manifestation of that change, and that is one that I will be supporting today. Mr Speaker, New Zealand that I want to see in the future as we change is, much like the past, a liberal society where, broadly speaking, we allow individuals, businesses and workers the right to choose, where we allow people the freedom of religion and the right to observe your religious practices, and freedom of choice. I think those values are long-standing values in New Zealand society, and those are the values that I want to be at the forefront in the future. This bill is consistent with those values, Mr Speaker. I am also a Catholic, I should say, and like the member that's brought this bill to the House, are not a very good Catholic, but one that understands the necessity of the days that are under question. And I'm not going to make a confession today, as my colleague Ryan Hamilton wishes that I do. But, Mr Speaker, this bill is consistent with the values that I want New Zealand to be in the future. It is good policy, as the member spoke. We've got Anzac Day coming up, and for some bizarre reason, we're having local RSAs that have to apply for special licences to serve alcohol in the morning. That just strikes me as bureaucratic, nonsensical, and not consistent with the spirit of the day and the spirit of our society. I've got businesses in my electorate that would love to trade on those days, and workers that would love to work on them. And the previous speaker spoke about the rights of workers, and workers ultimately have the right to say no. And I remember back when I was an apprentice butcher and on $6 an hour, and I could choose to work stat days, I could choose to work extra days if I wanted to get ahead. And if it didn't want to, then I could say no, and that business would go to another worker. So that is very much consistent with this good policy. And I think just, around the world looking at, I've had the fortunate privilege of living in different contexts, and I've lived in France where often there's no businesses open on a Sunday, and I've lived in America where you can get a brand new suit at 10 p.m. at night. And I just think that this is consistent with where we're heading as liberal democracies, free market societies, where we give employers and employees the right to choose. But Mr Speaker, I do want to touch on something, and that is the partisan politics of this House. Because Mr Speaker, this is the second time this year that this House is dealing with this question. And I walked through the yeas only to be met with a block vote from Labor on the noes. And I wish to acknowledge my friend Cameron Luxton, who brought a bill very similar to this to the House, and it was voted down. So what annoys me, Mr Speaker, is that we get caught up in partisan politics, and that gets in the way of good policy. And it's all very well to say what's good policy, but we can't support it because it's from the opposition. And it is on that basis, Mr Speaker, that I stand here saying that I'm happy to support this bill because I think it's good policy. I don't really agree with the member on a lot of other issues, but on this very issue, I can agree with him. So I look forward to sending this bill, hopefully, to Select Committee. I do think it's probably gone a little bit more further than the bill that we considered just a few months ago. So I'd be curious on what New Zealanders have to say, and I'll make my judgment on the future direction thereafter. But, Mr Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
What do you think his favourite drink is? Appetizer?
Great.
I know, but the fact when he was a butcher apprentice, was he working for a supermarket? Because I don't know. I mean, okay, in Newtown, yes, the halal butcher is open 7 days a week, but I'm trying to think outside of Wellington. I've not come across a butcher that was open 7 days a week. And the only ones that I know open 7 days a week are the 2 halal butchers in Newtown.
I mean, what's the moral of the story here? Be like France? I mean...
yeah, but France has 4 months off a year. So,
I support that.
Yeah, if we want to do that, then I think most people would be quite glad with that.
Now, when you say 4 months off a year, does that 4 months a collective of annual leave and public holidays?
It is, yeah. Basically, they take half of, they get to the summertime, and then everyone heads down to the south of France, and they basically just take their time off. But they're also heavily unionised, and So the
Nice.
country is very, very different to what we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, if he's advocating for that, I think that would be quite good. Yeah. But I haven't heard a single thing out of Dan Bedwar that's interesting or inspiring at all. Every time he speaks, it's just like kind of completely uninspiring.
Trying to sound inspirational while selling flat.
Yeah, I don't know.
Attempting to be inspirational. Now, is it you probably would know how to say the name better. The MP from Mangere, was it
Lydia? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's about 3 names in there, but Lydia's the middle name.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words in this conscience vote. I will be a member that will be voting against this bill due to my community, but I want to acknowledge my colleague who has come this evening with this bill, and I've heard his arguments, but I maintain from my local community in Mangere. So I just want to elaborate further as to my reasons voting against. So in Mangere, we have a population just under 70,000, and we have proliferation of alcohol outlets, mainly off licences. And for the past decade, I've been one of the members of the community. In a previous role, we had to get up to the community and talk to our community as to why these problems are occurring. So I've heard the arguments for the bill and want to acknowledge my colleague because he does have a point, and I've heard across the House where, evolutionary, we're changing in New Zealand. However, in some communities, alcohol is a real major problem. And in my community, we have over 60% of our population are under the youngest population in Aotearoa. We have a large youth population where off licences are a problem. However, we do have some very responsible licensed places. And with this bill, with the sales on Anzac Day morning, on Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day, Mangere has the largest amount of churches. We have a large religious community who want protection around the religious festivals such as Good Friday, Easter Sunday. We have a community who, some of them are quite young, because they have come from overseas, mainly Pacific Islands, and some of our ethnic communities who have grown. So on that note, it is important for me as the member representing my local community who have very strong views, who have very firm religious views. We have faiths of all different communities, not just Pacific, not just our Māori community, but also our ethnic communities are really growing in our local area. These religious days, and particularly Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day, and I've had a couple of groups who have said to me, why is New Zealand looking at this and keep talking about this rule or this law? Because in their view, they have migrated to this country and you have over 360 days of the year that you can access alcohol. Why can we not have the protections on these specific religious days? I think Anzac Day is quite different because our veterans, we need to celebrate and remember and commemorate the service that our veterans have done for this country. However, because it's part of this bill, there is a firm view from my community to stand up, and even if it gets voted against or the bill goes to the next process, that's one thing. However, from my local community in Mangere, I wanted to put forward their views, and due to our youth population who very much support what the elders are saying. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, it is important to put those views across. I've heard other views in terms of why they're voting against, and obviously there's firm views around trade laws and also employment. However, in my local community, it is really important. We have a very diverse community, and they celebrate a lot, particularly on those religious days of Good Friday, of Easter Sunday and Christmas Day. And for some families in my local community, those are very sacred times, given that AI and technology is a 24/7 thing. Families look to those specific days to come together, to celebrate the religious holidays and to be together on those days. And I thank you for the opportunity. And I do want to acknowledge my colleague, the Honourable Kieran McNulty, because even though we don't agree on some things, we are still colleagues. And I'm really happy to be part of the Labour Party because we are a broad church. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Tom. Okay. I'm gonna summon my inner Samoan. For those that don't know, I am part Samoan, and I'm gonna try and pronounce the name without sounding drunk. Limoga Sosini. Did I get it?
Yep.
I believe it's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lydia Sosini.
Tolofa Limoga Sosini.
Is she known more as Lydia rather than her first name?
Well, if you just break it up. You just go Limoga.
Limoga.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, does Mangere have more churches than Tawa.
That's yeah.
like if you went down the main road of Mangere, how many churches do you go past?
A lot. Yeah.
A lot. And I thought Tawa was bad, considering the main road has something like 8 or 10 churches on it. But all the churches in Tawa are on the main road. They're not in some pokey-ass part of the back of Hampton Hill area. They're all on the main drag. It's like they're a retail shop trying to catch the passing cars.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I'm not going to have a jandal thrown at my head.
Yeah. But I mean, Lamonga brings up a serious point there around the feeling that local communities have it there, particularly in Mangere, but also more broadly in South Auckland about alcohol. I mean, the way that the proliferation of bottle stores in South Auckland is a massive issue in that community, and so her community will be telling her in no uncertain terms that any more availability of alcohol is not something that they support. So
I remember the Pokies ads that used to be like that. What do you call it? We want no more Pokies. And ironically, it was the same community. And it was when Len Brown, before he became the mayor of Auckland, when he was the mayor of Manukau City, he was mentioned in that ad. Yeah. Okay, let's get to Tom Rutherford.
Speaker, and firstly, I want to just commend the previous speaker for her contribution, because actually it's really refreshing to hear alternative views being proposed by members of the Labour Party. And the reason I say that, Mr. Speaker, is I think back to the Easter Trading Bill from my friend and colleague Cameron Luxton in December 2024, and I remember the Labour Party voting 34 votes no as a block. And it was really disappointing. And Mr. Jackson says don't carry grudges. Actually, just laying out the history of what's transpired prior to this bill being brought to the House. And the reason I'm doing that is the member, when introducing this bill in his first speech, played at the heartstrings of members and said, vote with your conscience, vote with what is right. And I ask, where was that 4 months ago in December, when Cameron Luxton brought a very similar bill to the House to be considered, when members of the Labour Party, the Green Party, and New Zealand First all voted collectively as a block in one way and did not allow their members to use their right and use their conscience to vote either for or against. And Mr. Speaker, I do that to provide some lie of the land. And I think back also, Mr. Speaker, to a bill in 2023 when Nicola Willis brought her parental leave bill to the House, which allowed parents to take parental leave together to allow them to have some time together.
You're getting a wee way away from the bill.
I'm coming back to it, Mr. Speaker. And what transpired at that time is, again, the Labour Party voted as a block and voted down that legislation. And so the reason I set the scene, and if just let members have an opportunity, I will be voting in favour of the legislation to the Select Committee. Arena Williams says, we don't want your vote. That says a lot about the arrogance of that side of the House to make statements and say, we do not want your vote. We do not want your vote was exactly what Arena Williams said. That is absolutely disgraceful for members on the other side to make those kind of comments on a conscience issue. On a conscience issue. One thing that makes me extremely proud to be a member of the National Party is that we are genuinely a broad church. When we had this similar legislation in December 2024, members in our party, some voted for it, some voted against it, and that's what makes this a fantastic party to be a part of. What happened at the time? 34 votes opposed from the Labour Party.
3 minutes, and I don't think I've heard any mention of the bill yet.
I actually have mentioned the bill. Mr. Speaker.
Not to my satisfaction.
Okay, well, I'll keep carrying on then. One of the reasons I have a hesitation beyond supporting it beyond the Select Committee, and why I'm only supporting it to that stage at present, is alcohol is one of the biggest causes of harm in our communities across the country. And I am in favour of the liberalisation around giving people the opportunity to have a choice. I do agree with the member when he talks about what happens on Anzac Day and how many of our RSAs across the country, if not all of them, have to go through and get special permits and licences to allow them to operate and sell alcohol when you could just simply make a small legislative change like this bill's doing. But I also at the same time have the worry around the impact that alcohol and liberalising it even further will have on our communities across the country. So that is why, Mr. Jackson, I'm supporting it to the Select Committee, because I'm interested to hear from constituents and people across the country around their view around whether they are in favour of this and whether actually liberalising this legislation is something that they think is really important or not. Because I respected the previous point made by Lamonga Lydia Sososeni, where she stood up and said, on behalf of her Mangere community, she knew what they felt and how they felt towards this issue. And I respect her for taking that view as an electorate MP and standing in this House and saying, I know my community won't support this legislation. So I will be supporting it in the first reading to the Select Committee. I'll be interested if it gets to that stage to hear the feedback from our community, but I want the record to show what has transpired prior to us getting to this point in time.
Yeah, okay. What do you think his favourite beverage is? I put down white wine. Just because he's spending his entire speech just whinging. And he's white.
Disgraceful. That was just disgraceful. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely one that I don't think did any favours.
No.
So, bro, just yes or no. Stop whinging. Stop whining.
I mean,
with Mr. Speaker, has to interject. It's like, it's been 3 minutes now, we've not heard anything about the bill.
I was hoping Greg was going to crack that joke. I had to crack it for him, but yeah. The jokes are just right there. It's like, take it, Mr. Speaker. Go for it.
It's just terrible, you know?
And I wonder what licence establishment is the best one to go to in either Te Puke or Papamoa within his electorate?
I still say come down to Ikitahuna. I'm not driving up to wherever your pub is. Come down to my pub. We'll have a drink.
Okay, let's see. Was it Tanya Unkovic? And then we'll guess what type of alcoholic beverage she drinks.
Oh,
Mr. Speaker, I rise to personally give my position on the sale and supply of alcohol. Sales on Anzac Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day Amendment Bill. Now, my personal position has not changed since the previous bill that we spoke on by Mr. Luxon, in that I will not be voting for this. Now, there's a number of reasons, but one thing I do want to put on the record is that New Zealand First have exercised their conscience vote, as we did in the last bill, and it just so happened that 8 members individually said no. So I just wanted to put that on the record for my colleague. Now, look, when I look at this piece of legislation, I ask the question, what is the problem that we're trying to fix here? And I look at the problem and then I go, okay, by solving this problem, is it going to create another problem? And what is the trade-off? So I was thinking in those terms. And I was thinking about a lot of the NGOs, Mr. Speaker, who I go and speak to, like the Salvation Army Bridge program, and I asked all of them about not only the previous piece of legislation, but also this one. What are your views? And they have said the last thing we need is another outlet, another avenue for people who have drug or alcohol issues to be able to have easy access. During these times, holidays, Easter, Christmas, are times when they notice the mental health issues really do accelerate, and it's the loneliness that kicks in. It's a reminder that maybe I don't have a family. It's many things that trigger people, and to be able to have more access to alcohol, they have seen does not serve them or the community. So I'm listening to that issue. You know, we talk a lot in the House about health and how can we take pressure off our health system, our mental health system, our physical health system. And I reflect on what could happen on Christmas Day if someone who has drunk too much gets in the car and drives to get more alcohol. And I think of the possibility of loss of life. And yes, one weighs it up, but you know, one loss of life is too much for a family. And I think of these instances when thinking about how am I going to speak to this bill. It does happen. And I know someone who lost a brother on Christmas Day, and the pain never goes, and it's a reminder every Christmas Day. So I just wanted to bring some of those scenarios to the House. Do I have to confess I'm also a Catholic? Probably not. Being good Croatian stock, my grandmother couldn't read or write, but man, she knew how to pray the rosary. And so, of course, being brought up in a very religious life, one that I'm very grateful for, might I add. And Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Christmas Day are massive celebrations for our family, for our community. And I'm very involved in the religious communities, Catholic and others. And I know that this is something that they do not want. They want to do everything to maintain family, to maintain the sacredness of those days. And, you know, in the most recent census, 30% of people identified as Christians. So in my communities, people who I speak to about this, they say, no, it's not something we want. It's not that we don't want it, but we want to do everything we can to preserve our family unit. And this is one way that we see we can maintain that and not let anything else get in the way. And, you know, Good Friday, it is, for many of us, a time of fasting and abstinence, and it does have meaning. So, you know, these are just some of the things that I wanted to add as to why I personally will not vote for this. I honour the members who brought these to the House, these bills. Your contributions were very valid. However, thankfully, this is a conscience vote, and that is my say. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I like you saying about red wine.
Oh, yeah, no, because she mentioned Croatia, so the alcohol choice for her has to be Slivovitz, which is a plum brandy.
Oh, that sounds so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
It's actually really good, but it packs a punch.
That wine fueled the entire Serbo-Croatian War. Seriously. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Not that there's any link between those two, but I'm just throwing that in there as a little fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to Kieran's right of reply speech.
In reply, the Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I think Members' Days are a special element of our parliamentary process where, due to luck of the draw, literally, members have the opportunity to put forward ideas and have them discussed in the House. And on the whole, they are generally done in good humour and good heart. And so in that vein, I want to thank Steve Abel and Todd Stevenson, Rachel Boyack, Tanya Unkovich, Tom Rutherford, Lydia Lamaunga, Lydia Sosene, Tiana Tuiono, Dan Bidwar and Cameron Luxton. I particularly want to acknowledge Cameron Luxton. He got under my skin a little bit during my speech. There was a fair bit of constant heckling, which I think went a little bit far, but I actually get it. You're frustrated because, in your view, you put up a similar bill and it didn't get across the line. And it's possible, who knows, it's possible this one might. So I actually acknowledge that frustration. The fact is, though, that as has been expressed by my friend and colleague Steve Abel and others, there are genuine concerns around adjusting and changing the labour laws and the trading laws on these specified days. And that is deliberately why this bill focuses solely on the sale and supply of alcohol. Its intention is to only apply to those businesses that are already operating, that are already allowed to operate, and those workers that are already working. I actually introduced this bill to the ballot many years ago, and it was only withdrawn when I became a minister, and I reinserted it again when I was no longer a minister. I've been waiting for the opportunity to have this specific debate that has been deliberately drafted in this way so that we can try and find a compromise. It has been drafted in this way to take into account those of us that have no appetite at all to change labour laws on those days. It takes into account those that have expressed concerns around opening up trading on those days. Actually, I believe I put forward a case that warrants further explanation around the merits or otherwise of having restricted alcohol laws that still allow access to alcohol but under inconsistent conditions, and whether or not that actually has a counter-intuitive outcome. We can actually only do that at Select Committee. I want to acknowledge and thank everyone that has contributed to the debate. There are some that I don't agree with, but I fully respect your position. That is the beauty of a conscience vote, be it a personally held view or a true demonstration of a commitment to their community. Like Tom Rutherford, who incidentally, I want you vote, don't listen to, I don't know who's voting against it, I want you vote, and I'm grateful for your support to Select Committee. There are things that I am fully open to explore here. If it turns out that if the bill progresses, as I mentioned in my speech, with Christmas Day it won't pass, I'll take it out. The whole point of this is to find a pragmatic way to address these unusual and inconsistent liquor licensing rules. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to suggestions. I would have actually been able to lobby members of the House, but it's not supposed to have come up tonight. We had 2 bills withdrawn, which meant it's now here. So I got caught off guard a little bit, but I will acknowledge the work that you've done, Mr Luxton. Because of the conversations you've had, it has allowed people to get their head around this aspect of the bill, which was roughly a third. I remember when we discussed your bill. It was in the corridor at the back. You asked, will Labor... Oh, well, there you go. I remember the main bit. I was talking to you about your position. I said, if it was just on the alcohol, you'd get a good chunk of us, but it's not, and therefore you're not going to get our support. But good on you. Good on you for putting it forward, and good on everybody for putting their bills forward. This is the second bill that I've had the opportunity to debate. The first bill passed. I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss this and explore it further at Select Committee. There is likely to be aspects in this that I've overlooked. It's a member's bill. Like every other member, I haven't had the benefit of officials to look over this. I've made it really clear in my speeches the intention of this, so that when we get to Select Committee, if it doesn't meet that intention, let's change it. In the hope that if the clerks were to consider amendments, which I will be certainly open to, they will see what has been put down as an argument and a proposition tonight as the intent of this bill, to allow those businesses that can already and do already open, operate as they do in all other days of the year, and those businesses that can't operate, they stay the same. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, before we finish up, what's everyone's favourite alcoholic beverage?
I like my ciders.
Ah, okay. Scrumpy for me, yes. I love a strong cider. Hard cider is good.
Yeah, cider. I mean, at the moment, I'm drinking a little bit of cider, but I mean, it's generally. I've got some hazy IPA at the moment in the fridge, which I am enjoying. So, yeah.
I've still got my New Year's cider, which was blackberry. I think it was blackberry cider.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's also mixed with apple as well, because I can't picture it being cost. The price I paid is the same you would have paid for the apple version anyway at the supermarket. So I'll probably say it was a mixture of the two. I do know that you never see him on the Order Paper podcast, but you do see him on some ballot shows. Nick, I've got him hooked onto ciders, which is like one of the few alcoholic drinks he'll drink.
Yep.
Very good.
Now, let's get to the vote.
I've determined that the subject of this vote will be treated as a conscience issue. In this case, I know there are members who want a personal vote, and I'm prepared to accept one. This is the process we're going to follow. I'm going to put the question, I'm going to announce the result. At that stage, any member can ask for a personal vote. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Against, to the contrary, no. No. The noes have it. A personal vote is called for. A personal vote will be held. Ring the bells.
For whom the bell tolls.
The ayes will cast their vote in the lobby to the right. The noes will cast their vote in the lobby to the left. Abstentions will be recorded at the table. All votes and abstentions will be recorded by the clerk. Proxy votes will be marked as such. Members present in the chamber or lobbies must cast a vote or abstain. Standing Order 1481D, and must not leave before the vote is announced. Standing Order 1511.
Mr. Speaker,
alcohol, and they're not very eager to go off and vote, are they? Come on. Let's go. Faster, faster, faster.
Keep my speed.
Make it go faster. Yep, maximum speed. Let's go. Oh shit!
Just a moment while we get it back to 1.5.
I remember watching this live. It was excruciating to wait. It's like, just hurry up already.
This is one. Lock the doors!
Yeah, lock the doors.
Where's the Sergeant at Arms? Normally, the Sergeant at Arms ends up at the Speaker's desk when it comes with lock the doors. Anyway, I don't know if they really actually lock the doors.
Holy shit.
Lock the
finally.
doors.
Maybe he should have locked the doors first and, they could have
The
voted
question
faster.
is that the motion be agreed to.
Oh, God, here we go again.
Get the people out of the doors.
You could do one of those SpongeBob cuts. 1 hour later.
Here's a selfie with the
2 hours
car.
later. 3 fucking hours later.
I wonder which doors gets locked. That's the question. The Sergeant at Arms is walking around. These. There's Kieran coming back from the eye door.
Yeah, so in the words of Green Day, wake me up when the
Oh, I'm gonna actually have to ask.
end. doors.
I'm gonna have to ask Chris, which doors get locked when you go lock the doors?
Yeah, whack me up when the voting ends.
So what conversations do you think these people are doing?
They're probably talking about what their favourite fucking alcoholic beverage is.
Oh, the clerk's back.
Oh, finally!
Oh, another clerk's back.
Yeah. Wake me up when the voting ends. My ADHD can't handle this. There we go. Oh, fuck!
Well, there's a law.
Are we there yet, Mum?
There's a child runner, there's a Southern Court. There's a... No, that's not Todd Stevenson. Oh, yeah, we get some news.
The ayes are 67, the noes are 54. There are no abstentions. The question is agreed.
The sale and supply of alcohol sales on Anzac Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday and Christmas Day Amendment Bill, first reading.
Unlock the doors.
Unlock the doors.
Unlock the doors!
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, there's a long convoluted process to do a vote.
It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? All that just to get something through first reading. But
well, put it this way: in the UK, this is very standard.
I know.
Oh my god.
That's the thing. Whereas whereas in New Zealand, we gave up that when we got MMP.
Yeah, we're actually pretty quick, when it comes to it. Yeah.
How do people survive their parliamentary live streams?
Well,
usually they have the tellers usually sit there and stand at a certain point in there to do the eyes and the nose.
Yes, well.
Yeah. Okay, we're now in overtime. Thank you, Parliament, for taking forever to vote on the conscience vote. So let's bring up the first bill here. The Land Transport Management Time Use of Charging Bill closes next Sunday, the 27th of April. The Plain Language Repeal Bill submissions close on Wednesday, the 14th of May.
Get into because
that was good times. That was such
We'll
a
bring
funny
you the
bill to
second
review.
reading.
Yeah, that was.
And I might ask to see if Kate Healy, one of our Motions customers, would actually join in on that one as well.
I to that one.
Yeah, the Medicines Amendment Bill closes Monday, the 19th of May. The bill we covered tonight, the Employment Relations Termination of Employment by Agreement Amendment Bill, closes on Budget Day, Thursday, the 22nd of May. The Jury's Age of Excusal Amendment Bill closes on Budget Day, the 22nd of May. The supply of alcohol sale on Anzac Day morning, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Christmas Day, blah, blah, blah. You gamble what it means. That also closes on Thursday, the 22nd of May, also known as Budget Day. And the Anzac Day Amendment Bill, which also closes on Thursday, the 22nd of May, better known as Budget Day. Well, that's been an entertaining evening. I didn't expect us to be guessing what type of alcohol our MPs drink.
gotta make it fun somehow. Otherwise, you just go.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder how many of them will actually go into and put their comments in their retrospective videos to let us all know.
Yeah.
Anyone want to sit there and circulate it amongst the MPs? Hey, just saw you on this. What? They're guessing your alcohol. Are they on the money or not?
No, that was good. That was fun, actually. But yeah, there's a lot more to get through. But that was fun.
Got a bit chaotic towards the end. I can tell when the Ritalin runs out. I'm like,
Yeah. So yes, that's our lovely Easter Sunday special.
Yes.
Join us back for next Sunday for our Anzac weekend special, which is going to be on Anzac Day. Is going to be on Friday.
Nice.
Yeah. So thanks for watching, and we will see you all next week at 8 p.m. Have a good evening.
Sign off.
Thank you for watching the Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the Ballot Productions. Live